Good morning and happy Friday. Hang on a minute. Apparently, I don't know if it's Verizon or YouTube, but I set a long video to play while I'm sleeping because I can't stand silence. And I wake up, it's silent, the computer is dark, and when I get it awake again, I find that the video was stopped. It has that little arrow that you press to make the video start again. I believe in sleep learning and sleep hypnosis. I might even stop smoking if it'll just play the video. It's an 8-hour video. But no. Anyway, I woke up at something like 2 or 3 in the morning. Can't get back to sleep, so here I am with an article. Ooh, lots of glare, of course. That's how it is. That was sent to me some 10 years ago, I believe. It's from New Frontiers magazine and the Philip K. Dick Society. Paul Williams, editor. You can find info about John Keel in the Philip K. Dick Society newsletter number 6 from the 1980s. Apparently, Keel copyrighted it in 1970, and it's copyrighted, not copywritten or copywrote. It's right, R-I-G-H-T, as in the right to copy. There's a city in Wisconsin called Oregon, and the editor's note, that would be Paul Williams. It says, some readers might complain that the following article is written in the manner of a New York Times book review piece. That is, the book reviewer usually devotes 8,000 words to telling what he knows about the subject at hand and proving that his knowledge is vastly superior to anyone else's. Then, if the book author is lucky, he devotes the last paragraph of the review to the book, usually sniggering, answering, and sniggering, sneering, and dismissing it altogether. Oh dear. What is this? It begins with a quote from The Eighth Tower by John Keel. Now, I really don't know much about John Keel. I think he died mysteriously, but I'm not sure that's the guy I'm thinking of. In any case, I'm kind of going through the books that somebody unpacked from the boxes I had placed them in for safekeeping. They're scattered all over the place on half a dozen different bookshelves now. And I found this article and a few other things that don't belong in the bookcases. They belong in the box where I packed them up for safekeeping. Anyway, so now I finally get to read these. So here's a quote from John Keel's The Eighth Tower, written in 1976. It was after midnight in the spring of 1872, and a handsome carriage moved slowly through the fog of Sherlock Holmes's London. Young Richard, there's a kind of a gap in the copy. Okay, young Richard Maurice Buck, or Bucky, not sure which, sat erect in a quiet, meditative mood, his shoulders rocking with the uneven movements of the carriage wheels over the worn cobblestones. Suddenly, as he would recall later, a flame-colored cloud seemed to sweep over him. At first he thought the city was on fire. Then the luminous cloud seemed to enter his body, and lightning bolts crackled in his brain. For a brief moment he felt he was one with the universe, and all knowledge, past, present, and future, ricocheted in the corners of his mind, and he felt different, changed somehow. Well, let's see. And then that's the end of the quote. And Keel goes on to say, Dr. Buck went on to become one of Canada's most distinguished psychiatrists. Psychiatrists. Oh boy. And he was the first to attempt a study of the strange phenomenon that had engulfed him in that London fog. So you know that Keel is going to talk about Philip K. Dick's pink light experience. Oh, I'll read as much as I can. Where'd that thing go? This came with the Oxford English Dictionary from Book of the Month Club. And that thing is in such small type that nobody can read it without the magnifying glass. So let's see. Then in 1901, he slipped on the ice and bashed his head, but not before he produced the classic book Cosmic Consciousness, which is still in print. Now, Keel doesn't say, but I assume he either died or just had no brain, no intelligence. Let's see. Where am I? Now we skip ahead to the year 1948. An 18-year-old boy, fresh from a farm, is living in a cheaply furnished room a couple blocks from Times Square in New York City. In the middle of the night, he is awakened by a weird feeling. His room is filled with an indescribable light, a pinkish glow that leads him to think, I lost my place, of course. The building, that leads him to think the building is on fire. Before he can move, his mind is flooded with a torrent of information. Miraculously, he understands everything, and everything is underlined. All that has happened, all that will happen, and the total meaning of it all. Excited though he is, he falls asleep again. The next morning, he remembers the event vividly. It is seared into his mind, but the information is all lost. He can't remember any of it. As the years pass, he will realize that it was entered into his subconscious mind, and small portions will bubble to the surface from time to time. I was that 18-year-old boy. So Keel is establishing his creds, his knowledge of the subject. Humph. Oh, from time to time, rarely, but twice that I remember vividly, and I'm aware that it's happened other times. I have awakened in the middle of the night with a start, believing that the house was on fire, only to find that when I jumped out of bed, it was cold and dark. But I don't remember having all the knowledge in the world downloaded into my head. Okay, Keel goes on. Let's see. For many years, I never mentioned the incident to anyone, although the incident was so resplendent that I thought of it often. It wasn't until the 1960s that I discovered other people had shared the same experience. In fact, it is probable that it happens to millions of people in each generation. It is known under many different names: enlightenment, mystical illumination, cosmic illumination, etc. Many modern recipients are misled into thinking it is being born again. All right, I don't like that. Well, I don't like being asked, "Are you born again?" But the scripture says that we are born again to a new life when we get baptized. It isn't a woo woo thing, it's that baptism, like the Catholic confirmation, tells the world that we are believers in Christ, and that imperfect as we are, we will attempt to be good and do good. Okay, back to John Keel. Others think of it as the call, and they join priesthoods. Okay, well, maybe it is a call. I kind of suspected that coming on this early would leave me pretty much alone. Nobody in my chat room. No thumbs upses, no nothing. Oh well. I'll get listeners on the replay anyway. Back to John Keel. It takes forever for him to get to Philip K. Dick, but he does get there. Still others, often people of a humble station, quit their jobs, dump their families, and adopt a whole new way of life. Becoming famous leaders in the arts, politics, and religion. The one thing that becomes clear when you study this process is that a fairly large percentage of the human race is overtly manipulated by the illumination. Yep. I can testify to that from personal experience as well as my husband's experience. Philip K. Dick was complex, though, and he was already an author. but he did dump his family more than once, apparently. Oh well, let's see. Where are we? The one thing that becomes clear when you study this process is that a fairly large percentage of the human race is overtly manipulated by illumination, and they lead the rest of humanity into future events, often calamitous in nature, which were pre planned. Kind of makes you think of that UFO cult where they um, all drank poison and lay down on their beds covered with purple cloaks. Or Jim Jones down in Guyana poisoning the Kool-Aid and forcing his people to drink it. Okay. Religion makes a feeble effort to explain this manipulation. Men have been aware of it since civilizations have risen and collapsed because of this awareness. Whole civilizations have risen and collapsed because of this awareness. Well, maybe. Hi, Waxy. I have a friend in the chat room. Come on, mouse. Let me, let me. Wax Web is here. Oh, Waxy, it's okay if you go back to sleep. I would if I could. Instead, I have coffee. Well, I couldn't go live on my regular day, Tuesday. The internet just would not cooperate. We had snow and storm clouds and so forth. Overcast Friday. Well, I don't know whether it's overcast here. It's kind of dark out. It's a few minutes before 6 in the morning. It's almost 9 where you are. Aw, Waxy wants to share his drowsiness with me. Well, I no longer have a sleep-wake schedule. It's gone in the dumpster. But tomorrow I will be interviewed, assuming all goes well. Last week, the uh, gremlins of computer technology prevented me from going on. Um, Come on, I knew the title of the show a minute ago. It's Clyde Lewis's other show, the one on Channel Weird. Channel Weird with Clyde Lewis on YouTube. 1 p.m. Pacific time, Saturday. That's tomorrow, assuming the technology doesn't mess up on us again. Okay, let's see. Where are we? The source of this manipulation seems to be unknowable and indefinable. So mankind has devised a long series of anthropomorphic demons and gods to share the blame. Since earliest times, we have chopped out living hearts and waged horribly brutal wars as part of this manipulation. At this very moment, several religious wars are raging on this pathetic mudball. Boy, John Keel is a downer, a real downer. Remember, this is 1987. We're still at war somewhere in the world, or somebody is, but I don't blame it on the pink light. I think Keel professes too much power for this illumination. Okay. Victims of illumination with a capital I often suffer static, and the whole process misfires. People who deliberately seek to communicate with the Force, as George Lucas dubbed it, usually end up as suicides or they get hit by a truck. Those who drew circles on the floor, well, that's draw. Those who draw circles on the floor, light black candles, and wave swords around, always and always is underlined, come to a tragic end. The lamas in the Himalayas discovered that it takes many years of effort to attain illumination, and then the process takes over completely. The successful adept becomes a zombie in much the same way that religious fanatics everywhere become totally consumed and sacrifice their individuality for a state of happy mindlessness. Well, that might be true of some of the Eastern religions, maybe, and some of the more wacky Western religions. But I think Keel is wrong to toss all systems of belief into the same barrel. After all, scientists have faith in science and they insist that they don't go wacky. My water's empty. I gotta refill it. Oh, John Keel was an Illuminati, as in Naughty, a naughty boy. Oh, yes, Waxy is a good fan of Clyde Lewis. I gotta refill my water. I'll be right back. Uh, evil back. Dum de dum. Dum de dum de dum. Dum de dum. Dum de dum de dum. Ah, this morning is going all wrong. I'm out of Ritz crackers. I have some Fritos, but they are not the same. Great Granny's rocking chair is not being nice to me. Let's see. Maybe that'll feel better. Oh, that's a problem. Okay. I get to see more and more doctors. I'm sick of seeing doctors. But even though my kidney infection is gone, my kidneys are having some kind of trouble. I'm pretty sure I passed some kidney stones, but they're still fussing at me. At least they aren't screaming at me anymore. For a while there, my kidneys were so painful that I couldn't tell whether anything else was hurting. Yes, Fritos are good, but I wanted Ritz crackers. Why is my chair refusing to behave? There, here, that's a little better. Let's try this. Okay. Back to John Keel. Sorry for the distraction. Science fiction writers have dabbled with all this for many years. Who says? Who says? Maybe they just write stories to make a living. Keel presumes too much, and he paints entire groups with the same wide brush. They're all the same, and they're all, what's the word? They're all lacking, wanting, inferior to the great John Keel, who knows all and sees all. Oh well, let's keep going. Science fiction writers have dabbled with all this for many years, grinding out half-baked books loosely based on scholarly misinterpretations of the I gotta slow down, of the phenomenological literature. Oh, so Keel says they misinterpreted the truth, the real evidence, the phenomenological literature. Ooh, highfalutin. The sword and sorcery stories form a complete genre. Modern fantasy pays grudging acknowledgement to a very real period in early history when men understood the magical forces surrounding them, and, in fact, magic was the true science of its day. Boy, he really is an Illuminati, isn't he? Sorry, my heating pad decided to get too hot. Let's see, rich crackers make you think of mock apple pie. Oh, yeah. I never tried mock apple pie. It's made with rich crackers instead of apples, which seems backwards. The crackers are more expensive than apples. John Keel's book royalties could be considered a Keel haul. Waxy is so smart and his humor is so good. Although sometimes I have to ignore it because he sometimes resorts to either fourth grade humor or something that belongs in Playboy. And I feel embarrassed. Okay, Keel is. I should have read this 10 years ago. Oh well, I didn't. So magic was the true science of its day, huh? I thought alchemy was the true science. Alchemy goes back to ancient Egypt. It isn't new. It isn't just Dr. John Dee giving advice to Elizabeth I of England. Okay, here we go. Some science fiction writers have even been zapped by that big searchlight in the sky. The late Philip K. Dick, 1928 to 1982, wrote extensively and obsessively about a mind-widening experience. His cult novel Valis, one of his last works, published by Bantam in 1981, described how a rather unlikable hero named Fat wandered through the Twilight Zone. Oh, lowfalutin, opposite of highfalutin? Yeah, he is laying it on thick, but here he quotes from Valis. Once again, making the same mistake so many people have made over the years, confusing the dramatization in a novel with what really happened to Phil. In some ways, Phil was a drama queen or a drama king, whatever. Oh, he hasn't quoted from Valis just yet. That's a little. Oh, yes, it is. That's from Valis. A whole 2 paragraphs, block text, a quotation. I tell you these things for what they are worth. They are true things. They happened. In Fat's opinion, his apartment had been saturated with high levels of radiation of some kind. In fact, he had seen it, blue light dancing like St. Elmo's fire. And what was more, the aurora that sizzled around the apartment behaved as if it were sentient and alive. When it entered objects, it interfered with their causal processes. And when it reached Fat's head, it transferred not just information to him. Sorry, I got itchies. Which it did. Okay, not just information, which it did, but also a personality. A personality which wasn't Fat's. A person with different memories, customs, tastes, and habits. And if you are really into this, you probably remember that Phil bragged about switching from wine, not wine, wine, to beer, as if this pink light experience had changed him. Well, the truth is, the doctor diagnosed Phil with gout, and one of the things the doctor told him not to consume was wine. Turns out wine has nothing to do with gout, but this was the mid 1970s. Oh, you like the big mask in the sky? Well, that was decades before a decade before the pink light. Not even touching that, Waxy. The quotation before us, this is a really bad Xerox copy. The quotation before us is simple. Was PKD a flake? That's the title of this article, by the way. Was PKD a flake? Well, it seems to me that a flake is a shiftless fool who, never, if he gets a job, never holds on to it. If he has friends and loved ones, he never holds on to them. So, I don't think so. Okay. Was PKD a flake? He spent the last 8 years of his life talking and writing about his religious experience. He had learned the true meaning of the ancient phrase, "He has seen the light." Was he just a plain nut? Had he been reading my books and articles? Was he into drugs? As far as I know, he never heard of John Keel. And as far as I know, he was not on drugs. His few flirtations with drugs were prescriptions from his doctor. Okay, I gotta recycle my coffee now. But I'll be back, so hang in there. Dum de dum, dum de dum de dum, dum de dum. Dum de dum de dum, dum de dum, dum de dum de dum, dum de dum, dum de dum de dum, dum de dum. I think I'm back. Ah, no, I don't think Phil ever owned a valise. So there, valise ownership is greater than flake accusations, huh? Thanks, Waxy. Let's get back to John Keel. I'm beginning to intensely dislike this guy. Let me see if Google will give me a brief biography of the guy. John Keel. A journalist and influential ufologist. 37. He was 79 when he died. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, he's not the guy I was thinking of. Man, is he ever entitled elite? Cigarette went out again. He doesn't seem to really and truly understand the occult and paranormal, or even psychology. Oh well. Was PKD a flake? No. He had learned the true meaning of the ancient phrase, "he has seen the light." Was he just a plain nut? Had he been reading my books and articles? Was he into drugs? So far as I know, no on both counts. And here's another quote from Vallis, um, describing what horse lover fat or fats. Wasn't there an S on the end of fat? Oh well. Anyway, what he told his friends. God, he told us, had fired a pink. I said that from memory, not the text. Well, Project UFO, I don't remember it. I'm sure I've seen it. If you liked the show, okay, it must have been a good show. Now let's start over with the block quote from Vallis. God, he told us, had fired a beam of pink light directly at him, at his head, his eyes. That ached for days. It was easy, he said, to describe the beam of pink light. It's exactly what you get as a phosphine after image. I wanted to say effect, a phosphine after image when a flashbulb has gone off in your face. Well, that is what happened to Phil. A bright reflection off a silvery sticker in our window temporarily blinded him. And then he saw the phosphine activity in the form of pink images, pink light. Okay, back to the quote from Vallis. That was spiritually haunted by that color. He lived for that light, that one particular color. Oh, and the ellipses show that Keel left something out right before he lived for that light. Next paragraph. However, he could never really find it again. Nothing could generate that color for light but God. In other words, normal light did not contain that color. One time, Fat studied a color chart, a chart of the visible spectrum. The color was absent. He had seen a color which no one can see. It lay off the end. I guess he means the end of the spectrum. Okay. It's very dangerous for Keel or anyone else to use the text of a novel. Hi, Oswald. To use the text of a novel to analyze a real world experience. Look at all the kitty cats and froggies. Hi. Okay. Now I have a growing chat room. Excellent. Waxy hasn't won a book yet. Okay, let's see. Back to John Keel, the quote from Vallis is ended. It does sound as if PKD may have had personal experience with the dazzling light that has now been reported by countless UFO contactees, angel witnesses. There are thousands of reports of angels each year, and chimera sighters. Chimera, that's an animal made of parts of different animals, kind of like the jackalope, which of course is a joke. They show a jackrabbit with antelope horns in these images of the jackalope. I love my chat room. Without my chat room, I'm nothing. You guys are awesome. Okay. Where was I? The visible spectrum goes from red at one end of the scale to purple at the other end. Actually, Keel is wrong. Red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, and violet. There's no purple in it. Purple is not the same as violet or indigo. Trust me. Well, don't trust me and don't trust Keel. Look it up. Beyond these, we have infrared and ultraviolet. That's true. Some humans are able to perceive those invisible colors and peek into the edges of a whole universe that is hidden from the rest of us. That may be the universe that gleefully manipulates us into charging into battle to spew our guts all over the. Gotta turn the page. All over the landscape. Oh, the trash truck is here. I don't know whether you heard it. I heard their air brakes. It is also a universe that grinds away endless propaganda like a broken phonograph to generation after generation of prophets, seers, contactees, and, in the 1980s, channels. And if you don't know, a phonograph is one of those old record players that play 33 LPs and 45s and 78s. And there is a fourth speed that I've never had on a phonograph. Ooh, Kona coffee. Laxi, you're making me jealous. I'm getting by with instant coffee this morning. Well, anyway. Keel has a highly inflated view of himself. In a letter written on May 20, 1977, reprinted in the Philip K. Dick Society newsletter, Volume 4, or issue number 4, I should say, PKD reveals that his mind was picking up the signals from that broken phonograph. Like most contactees and spiritualists, quote, meanwhile I was shaping my cosmology, end quote, he wrote. Quote, when it finally took form in March of 1974, based on my mystical revelations, I understood noetically that two opposing forces, powers, sides, or entities contended in our world, using it as a game board or battlefield. Intellectually, I could then identify these two absolute forces with the two forces I had formerly seen as mundane. So there's these two godlike forces that are in battle, kind of like either Manichaeism, which is a Christian heresy, sort of. It borrows a lot from Hinduism, or the Persian religion of Zoroastrianism. Okay, let's see. What did Phil write in that letter? My foe, which became identified with the Sons of Darkness, bingo. Phil was studying the Dead Sea Scrolls. His friend Jim Pike, the former Episcopal Bishop of California, was really strongly connected to the Dead Sea Scrolls scholarship, and a friend of John Allegro, one of the scholars who actually worked on translations of the scrolls. Okay, so my foe, which became identified with the sons of darkness, and my friends, the sons of light, dot, 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 that's an ellipsis, something's left out, to use Zoroaster's terms. I had been, well, they're kind of Zoroastrian, but they're found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay. I had been part of a cosmic struggle acted out on our Earth. It was a struggle taking place in the arena of human history. Evidently, I was a son of light who had come here, forgotten his origin, identity, and purpose, but regained memory and understanding of all this after, and after is underlined, I had done my work. I remembered who I was, why I was here, and I experienced my true father, whom I call the programmer. End of the quote. You need to keep in mind that you couldn't just Google things in the 1970s. And Phil had agoraphobia. Once in a while, he would go to the library at Cal State Fullerton, but he was sorting his own papers that he had donated to their special collections. Okay. Jeez. So Keel says, the programmer! Exclamation point. Was PKD the flake just ranting? Or was he standing on the edge of one universe and peering into another with greater perception and lucidity than most contactees, channels, and spiritual dingalings? What we have here is where Phil at one point seems to be a Gnostic, regaining his memory of who he was and where he came from in the heavenly realm. He reveals himself here as a dualist. There's a good God and a bad God fighting it out, and we are the prize. We are the battleground and the prize. Mm-hmm. Gnosticism is much more than that, and there are different forms of Gnosticism that don't agree with each other on the details, but they do have dozens of gods, not two. Oh, V for victory, and this is peace. I know in Europe, the two fingers might be seen as a profanity, an F word. Here in this country, it's just the middle finger. Keel is really puffed up with pride, isn't he? All right, now we have part 2. Philip K. Dick had lived a tortured, paranoid life, hounded by the IRS and other cruel social forces of the 1970s. He had also apparently summoned up those sons of darkness. While I can find no direct reference to it, his writings hint that he may have been flirting with pentagrams and sword waving in darkened rooms. Absolutely not. Phil had no use for Ouija boards or pentagrams or any of that crap. However, he had attended at least 2 seances where Bishop Pike was trying to contact the spirit of his deceased son. All right, Oswald has a question. Phil died in 1982. The Unabomber started his violence in 78. Phil, of course, heard about the Unabomber on the television news, but he had no special knowledge or insight about it. The Ted K movie? Let's see. Oh, actually, I'm not going to sing. Okay. In parentheses, possibly, but not that I know of. That's a note from Paul Williams, the editor. We used to say Paul Williams, not the Irish singer. In the 70s, when I knew Paul Williams, there was a popular singer named Paul Williams. He was short, had long blonde hair, and a nice voice. Okay, back to Keel. In 1970, his home was broken into. Keel didn't do very much research, did he? Phil repeatedly reported that his house had been invaded on November 17th, 1971, not 1970. Mm-hmm. And high explosives were used to blast open his filing cabinets. Phil had one fireproof filing cabinet, and it was blown up with explosives. Possibly, I don't remember what it's called. Well, anyway, a military-grade plastic explosive. But he fled for his life, hiding out for some time from some mysterious enemy. Although the FBI, under J. Edgar Hoover, was performing all kinds of atrocities against normal, innocent citizens during that period. Well, he left something out. There's 3 dots and ellipses between mysterious enemy and although the FBI. Following the military coup of 1963, we were all living in an Orwellian police state. I guess that refers to the assassination of President Kennedy. I don't think the military did it. Oh well. Everybody's phone was tapped, or so it seemed. Everybody's mail was being tampered with. And in parentheses, the CIA has acknowledged intercepting at least one letter PKD sent to a Soviet scientist in the 1950s. That's Paul Williams' note. Back to Keel. The New Age was suddenly upon us, and Ouija boards were outselling Monopoly sets. Phil had no use for the New Age or Ouija boards. Oh, Rainbow Connection is Froggy. Kermit, not Paul Williams. So there. Okay. Let's see. Where am I? The pointless bloodbath in Vietnam was steadily escalating. Actually, no. By 1974, when Phil had that experience, Richard Nixon was drawing down the troop presence in Vietnam. While Watergate was going on, the Senate hearings, the impeachment of President Nixon, Nixon ended the draft and started pulling troops out of Vietnam in an orderly manner. And then Nixon resigned and Gerald Ford took over, and I will never forgive Gerald Ford for the sloppy pullout from Vietnam, leaving behind not only service dogs, who probably ended up on dinner plates, but also people. Of course, nowadays Afghanistan makes Vietnam look like a house party. Well, anyway, the New Age was suddenly upon us, and Ouija boards were outselling Monopoly sets. The pointless bloodbath in Vietnam was already escalating. It was a scary, no, it was a sorry time. A massive worldwide UFO wave had enchanted millions from 1964 to 68. Enlightenment was taking place wholesale, all biased towards antiquated occult beliefs. If you didn't believe in anything, you could join the growing drug movement, which would later dominate the 1970s, along with the weirdly selfish anti-Christian me first trend, forerunner to the total greed of the 1980s. It was not surprising that PKD would be caught up in all these things. He tried drugs. He studied the occult. Okay, that's true. And according to Tessa B. Dick, one of his 5 wives, here he's quoting me, in March of 1974, we felt that we were in real danger. Something ominous loomed over the horizon, just out of view. Our radio refused to behave. It would come on when it was not on, and would pick up broadcasts that just did not belong on the station it was tuned to. ... Our telephone behaved strangely too. End of the quote. And back to Keel. I might get through the whole thing here. Yes, radios behaved most strangely then. my own included, and telephones! Exclamation point. Telephones were running amok all over the country. See my book, The Mothman Prophecies, for a full account of these problems. PKD's paranoia was not only well-founded, it was shared by a great many other people. We were all being manipulated. Many of us were on a great voyage of self-discovery. PKD was learning of powers he had never been fully aware of. Quote, and this is quoting Phil, and I lost it. Uh, da, da, da. Some part of my brain is out of sync with time, end quote, he observed. His powers of precognition fascinated and terrified him. He felt foreboding weeks before his house was broken into in Marin County. He worked on Valis and other enlightened projects. Oh, wait a minute. Keel has conflated the timeline. The hit on his house was November 17th, 1971. The work on the Valis novels began in 1974 after Phil's pink light experience. Oh, geez. Okay, let's see. He worked on Valis and other, quote, enlightened, end quote, projects with a frenzy because he knew there was a black cloud just beyond the horizon. Sorry, I got itchies. From his letters, books, and interviews, it is apparent that he knew when his work was done there would be a sudden stillness. Well, Keel was wrong there. His work was not done when he tragically died. But that's another story. And here's a quote from Phil again. Pascal said, "All history is one immortal man who continually learns." This is the immortal one. Okay, end of the quote from Pascal. And then Phil talking again. This is the immortal one whom we worship without knowing his name. End quote, PKD observed. Like all writers, PKD was a neurotic. Here he goes again, overgeneralization. Many people are neurotic but not writers, and many writers are not neurotic. Oh, I got Waxy to split. Okay. Okay, like all writers, PKD was a neurotic. Like all those who allow their minds to probe into the misty corners of man's spiritual existence, he suffered. And in 1982, his work was done. Wrong, wasn't done. All the proper words had been placed in the proper order. Was he a flake? Millions of readers from yesterday and tomorrow will see him as a very special man in a world without time, where wonderment is a basic law like gravity. And that's the end of the article. So Keel was puffed up, entitled elite, full of pride at his massive intellect and great Store of knowledge. Oh, jeez Louise. Right, you betcha. I'm glad I read that, but Keel was an ass. I have some of Keel's other work here, also Xerox copies that someone sent me. Maybe I'll get around to reading it. Anyway, did take my mind off of current events for a while. Some Russian politician is asking the White House to send them a schedule so they know when they're going to invade the Ukraine and when it's safe to go on vacation. In English, it's the Ukraine, the same as it's the United States. The British Isles, the Gulag Archipelago. I had to try to explain to Chinese students back in the 90s and others whose languages did not have articles. They didn't have a and the. It's Great Britain, but the United Kingdom. No the on Great Britain because, as far as we know, there's only one Britain. But it's the United Kingdom because there are many kingdoms, and we're talking about this one. The basically means this one. And yeah, you can say Ukraine without the. Sometimes I do, but I'm not dissing their sovereignty. It's just a natural way of speaking American English. The nether regions, huh? Oh, Netherlands. Yeah, the Netherlands. Ew. I didn't need to know that, Oswald. You. I'm not going to say it. Um, oh, come on, brain. The Falkland Islands. But Argentina doesn't need the. There are many islands, so it's the Falkland Islands. But there's only one Argentina. And I don't know why. Ukraine just seems more natural when we say the Ukraine. Back slightly before our American Revolution, Russia saved Ukraine, rescued them from Ottoman domination. And over the years, the rulership of Ukraine or the Ukraine went back and forth between Turkey in the form of the Ottoman Empire and Russia. As for Crimea, which is to the north of Ukraine, it was not part of the Ukraine until the Soviet Union gave Crimea to Ukraine in 1953, 1 year before I was born. But they gave it to the the Soviet Socialist Republic of Ukraine, which of course does not exist anymore. The snob man prophecies. Waxy's making a joke. Yeah, Mothman. I don't know what to make of Mothman. Apparently, it is neither a moth nor a man, but it's some kind of spooky figure that appears. Most famously, it appeared shortly before a bridge collapsed, killing people. No, it isn't the Lebanon, but it's the Gobi Desert, the Sahara Desert. There are many deserts, but we're talking about this one. Oh well, we have the United States. Why not the Ukraine? But it is the Lebanese people, because there are many people, only one Lebanese people, but not the Lebanon, because there's only one of those. The Philippines, yeah. Well, you know why? That's a shortened form of the Philippine Islands, and there are many islands. But not the Indonesia. There's only one Indonesia, even though it is made up of a whole bunch of islands. You see, the Philippines were named for King Philip of Spain. Indonesia is just um, referring to the people who live there, their ethnicity. They're kind of Indian, sort of, and sort of not, because the early European explorers thought everybody was an Indian. Well, there were Chinese, there were Indians, and then there were Europeans. So all the native tribes of the Americas were Indians, and all the islanders of Indonesia were Indonesian. Hmm. By the way, I once tutored some Indonesian students, and they brought me and my coworkers some slices of cake from the shop that the one lady's mother owned. And it was so beautiful, I felt it was a shame to eat it. It was like a white cake with white frosting, but then with pieces of fruit like kiwi and grapes and watermelon and stuff. They had made these beautiful fruit flowers. It looked like orchids on top of the cake. It was so amazing and delicious. Mm. Hi, Vegan. Let's see. 7 and 8 is 15. It's 3 in the afternoon, your time, or thereabouts. Well, let's see. I've been on for an hour and 20. I read the whole John Keel article. I'm not sleepy. Darn it. I should have been sleeping this whole time. Apparently, the police in Canada have been arresting the truck protesters in Ottawa. Some of the other protests across Canada have packed up and left. I think they made their point. But there are protests all over the world now. France and um, Australia, New Zealand. In countries that have not lifted the mandates. Now, I'm not anti vax, but I really don't like the idea that the government can tell you and your doctor what you can do about your health. Trudeau, well, I'm sure he has a nice bunker in his mansion. All I can say about Trudeau is he has fantastic hair. I don't really know much about Canadian politics, only the clips I see on YouTube. But their parliament does seem to be awfully rowdy. Uh-huh. Yeah. Clumsy. Um, I get a little startled when I hear them say MP, which is member of parliament, because in all the war movies that my brothers made me watch, because they had control of the television, MP stood for military police, and they were the army police. They called them something else in the Air Force, and I've forgotten what it was. Oh well. Well, Trudeau did show up in Parliament recently. But in the 70s, there was a strike, a really huge strike by workers who wanted to unionize, but the companies they worked for were preventing them from forming a union. I wasn't all that into it at the time, but I do remember that President Nixon actually went with just a small Secret Service escort, a few guys, nothing big, and talked to the workers in person. Trudeau just goes on television and says they aren't worth listening to. Talk about entitled elites. I hope this doesn't get some YouTube fact checker to get my video taken down. I'm just repeating what I saw on clips from Fox News. I have no personal knowledge, but it does seem to me that many entitled elites who have plenty of money and servants and uh, bodyguards and gated communities and fences and stuff, they have no idea how real people live. I mean, I remember George Bush, the father, doing a little promo, a little fluff piece on the news. He went to a grocery store, and he honestly did not know how to shop for his own groceries. And the clerk went, scanned the barcode, and it went beep. And President Bush says, "What's that?" He didn't know. I don't know about Castro being Trudeau's father, but they do look a lot alike. Um, I'm sorry, Waxy, but YouTube doesn't like what you said about his mother, so. Oh, someone approved it. Okay. Oswald has a wrench. I wouldn't go around insulting his mother. I don't know her or anything about her, really, except that apparently, according to Fox News, she was infatuated with Fidel Castro. You need to understand that among the upper crust, they still have arranged marriages. They aren't necessarily in love with their husbands and wives. They did show some photographs of Trudeau's mother. She wasn't a beauty queen, but she wasn't bad looking. I'm curious as to why my phone is beeping. Let me see. Eh, someone played on Words with Friends. So, it'll wait. Yeah, the upper crust. There, there's that phrase has something to do with bread making when um, bread was basically the staple that kept people alive, but rich people could afford the best bread. I've forgotten the story. Oh well. Anyway, oh well. I'm finally getting sleepy and it's time to get up. I blame my kidneys. They're really bad. They aren't nearly as painful as they were before the infection finally got killed, but they aren't my friend right now. And I'm doing what I can with diet and supplements to kind of baby them along. It's really weird. Oh well. I guess I should get back to my day. It's been an hour and a half. I really don't want to give away a book today because I still have 3 books to mail, 2 of them overseas, and I'm still waiting for V, who was the last winner, to send me a shipping address. So, I can't honestly offer a free book today. It isn't Tuesday anyway. Oh boy. So, I don't know. Current events are really bothering me. But I'm afraid if I talk about them, some fact checker will decide that my video has to be taken down. And I don't have tons of opinions because I don't have a lot of information. But it does seem to me that people who are born with the silver spoon in their mouth really, we should feel sorry for them, like the servants in Victorian times. They worked for people who couldn't even put their own clothes on without help from a valet or a maid. And Oswald says the upper crust are still crusty crustaceans. Yep. And many of our American wealthy elites are descended from robber barons who beat the competition in their industry by paying thugs to beat up the other guy's workforce, and by shady practices to, air quotes, legally take away land and other stuff from their competition. The, I forgot which county, the water wars in Arizona in the time of Billy the Kid, something county. There's a John Wayne movie about it. Rio, one of the Rio movies. There was Rio Bravo, Rio Lobo. I don't remember. My brain's not working, it's too cold. But it was, the problem was that the sheep herders would take their sheep to the nearest creek or stream or river to drink water, and the cattle ranchers didn't like that. When sheep graze a field, they chew the grass down to the roots and often eat the roots. Cattle just kind of rip out a chunk of grass and chew on it. And the cattle ranchers thought that the sheep were destroying the natural resources. So they were environmentalists. And they used all kinds of mostly illegal tactics in an effort to drive out the sheep herders, the shepherds, who were, by the way, mostly Basque. They came from that region between Spain and France where the Basques live. Rather than talk to each other and come up with a way to coexist, they just tried and tried and tried to drive out the shepherds. They never totally succeeded. Now, I'm not sure how it is now, but it used to be if you took your family on vacation all to Arizona or heading north up to like Montana and South Dakota, you would run into Basque shepherds, and you could buy products that they made, including in Arizona, you could get prickly pear jelly. The prickly pear cactus has a fruit that makes apparently an amazing jam or jelly. Um, Phil, with his wife Cleo, drove across country and they filmed some huge flocks of sheep, I think in South Dakota, but it could have been Colorado. The Basques have the highest rates of Rh blood of any demographic. Rh negative, yeah. I'm Rh negative. So was Granny. I think that's what went wrong with Mom. She was what they called a blue baby. She was Granny's second child. And Granny was Rh negative, but both of her daughters were Rh positive. So her body had a bad reaction to her second baby. I'm just not willing to go into the devil's sister who raised me right now. But I did send off my DNA for testing. I know who my mother was. She was there when I was born. But there's some question among the children of our mother as to who exactly the father or fathers were. So I'm going to find out. I went with an outfit called My Heritage, and they use what they call autosomal DNA. See, the mitochondrial DNA comes only from your mother, and yet most of the DNA companies just do mitochondrial. This outfit does autosomal, the nuclear DNA that comes from both parents. I'm going to find out whether it's true that we are part Cherokee. We know we're part black. Grandpa was passing for white, and his father couldn't pass. Not a big deal now. But boy, in the 60s when we were growing up, oh, it was horrible. So nobody told us. We learned only when we were adults. And nobody told us, but my brother was doing our family tree and came across great grandpa's other family in Texas. And they're black. And they said, yeah, he was black. Wow. You wouldn't know it from looking at me, would you? You'd assume that I'm a white girl, but Mom treated me as her personal slave and made these jokes that meant nothing to me at the time, but looking back, it's, oh, she knew. She considered me an N-word. Jeez. Go figure. Oh, well. So I'll find out in a couple weeks what my DNA has to say. Maybe it'll turn out that I'm a Sephardic Jew or a Mongolian native or, I don't know, maybe I'm Eastern European. Who knows? Maybe I'm an Aztec. Maybe I should walk like an Egyptian. Oh, that's interesting, Oswald, about eyes. My eyes are a very dark green, almost brown, and sometimes you can see flecks of brown, but they're dark green like an emerald. So green eyes are a mutation of blue with a yellow lipochrome. Well, I think you're referring to the very pale, light green eyes. Mine are not like that. They're dark, forest green. They aren't yellowish. They're more um, brownish, but green. Oh, you're going to take a picture of your own eye, Oswald. Okay. You. I'll have to take a picture of mine if I can get the right light. It really is time to go, an hour and 40. Um, anyway, now I know more than I wanted about John Keel. Oh, so RH negative, they want to know what color your eyes are, huh? Okay, that's weird. I don't know. RH negative apparently does not occur in any other animal besides humans, and we don't know where it came from. I suggest that it probably arises from the fact that we did not evolve from apes. There are just too many flaws in Darwin's theory and even neo-Darwinism. They cannot get around the fact that the information in DNA could not have happened by chance. Yeah, some people think Rh negative blood means you're an alien. If that's so, then Granny was an alien. I'm almost willing to believe that she was an Aquarius, and so was her husband, my grandfather, Judd. We're both Aquarians, you know, astrology. They really had the typical Aquarian traits, too. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're all people. All the people on the earth are just people. We're all human. We all have red blood. We really are brothers and sisters around the world, and we need to begin acting like it. Sure, I want to end war, but not by defanging the military. Yeah, the military industrial complex, I'll go with that. Why should we enrich Lockheed Martin? What did they ever do for us? But you deter war by being strong and pray that you never have to use your strength, which is pretty much what they teach in martial arts. Kung Fu, karate, Tai Chi. What they teach the most and emphasize the most is how to avoid a fight so you don't have to use your martial arts. We should remember that. That's how, when they're properly taught, that's how police officers are taught. Be strong so you don't have to use force. Uh, Yeah, child asks his mother, where do people come from? Divine creation. God made us. And then the child asks the father, and he says, we're descended from apes. So the child goes back to the mother, and this is from Oswald, by the way, in the chat room. Why do you give two different answers? Dad says we descended from apes, and she says, there's no contradiction. My side of the family is divine creation, and your father's are apes. Good point. Well, let's see. Apes don't have opposable thumbs. They don't have a language, even though technically they could physically form a language. It doesn't have to be the spoken word, it could be clicks like some natives of Africa. It could be, just whatever sound they're capable of making, but they don't do it. They don't clean up after themselves. They eat whatever they can grab at the moment. They don't cook their food. And worst of all, the male apes will kill the babies if they are not the father. So a mother gorilla has a baby by one male ape, and some other male ape comes along and kills the baby. Humans don't normally do that. On the rare occasions when it does happen, we're horrified. We're even horrified by the apes doing that. Lions, the same. When a young lion takes over the pride by kicking out the old lion or even killing him, he goes around and kills all the cubs so that the females will go into fertility and he can impregnate them all and have his own lion cubs. Humans don't ordinarily do that. Now, suppose you find some isolated tribe in South America and you just end up adopting an infant from a tribe of headhunters. And you raise that child in London and eventually have the child educated at Oxford. That grown up child of a headhunter in the Amazon forest will fit right in at the BBC. Can you do that with a chimpanzee, an orangutan, a gorilla, a bonobo? Nope. Some gorillas and chimps have learned American Sign Language. They might know as many as 20 words, and they're mostly food. Food, blanket, toy, stuff like that. But you can't send them to Oxford University. They can't go up to Oxford or Cambridge. And they'll never fit in at the BBC. We're different. Not only in behavior, but in having opposable thumbs. Although raccoons seem to do quite well without them. They can open just about anything if they think there's food in it. And apes manage to pick fruit and kill game for food. I don't want to think about that. It's horrible. But anyway, it really is time to go. However, the replay will be available. And mostly I read from John Keel's article, Was PKD a Flake? Well, Philip K. Dick was not a flake. But he was unique. And I miss him, even now. More so than ever in some ways. So, okay, guys, let's see. I gotta type thank you. Whoops. You for listening and have a great day. Why can't I type great? It always comes out Greta. There we go. Here we are. Hang in there. The best is yet to come. And overall, we, the people of this world, most of us are good people. Especially my wonderful chat room with amazing, amazing, intelligent, informed people who, for some reason, not only listen to me, but give me ideas and help me when I'm stuck on a word or something of that sort. Hang in there. It's only going to get better. Bye.